As we discussed last time, the second generation of Romantics grew up in a time of war and revolutionary conservatism. While Shelley was a romantic and an idealist, much of his poetry took a definitely political turn. Today we are going to analyze two poems. In the first, England in 1819, Shelley describes his country as it appears to him. An old, mad, blind, despised, and dying king. Princes, the dregs of their dull race, who flow through public scorn, mud from a muddy spring. Rulers who neither see, nor feel, nor know, but leech-like to their fainting country cling till they drop blind in blood without a blow. A people starved and stabbed in the untilled field. An army whom liberticide and prey makes as a two-edged sword to all who wield. Golden and sanguine laws which tempt and slay. Religion Christless, godless, a book sealed. A senate, time's worst statute unrepealed, are graves from which a glorious phantom may burst to illumine our tempestuous day. Now let's go through and make sure we understand the references. So an old, mad, blind, despised, and dying king, that was King George III, who was going mad as a result of his disease. His sons were having affairs and carousing, and the public disapproved of their behavior, so they flow through public scorn. Dregs actually are the bit of stuff that gathers at the bottom of a barrel of wine, or sometimes a bottle of wine. That disgusting stuff at the bottom, that's the princes. Okay. He talks about the rulers as being leech-like, and then he takes that metaphor and runs with it, right? They faint to their fainting country cling till they drop blind in blood. So a leech will grab onto you, suck your blood until it's absolutely full, and then drop away, right? And that's what the rulers are doing. They're leeching on to the country and just sucking out all that they can get out of it. Okay. A people starved and stabbed in the untilled field. This is a reference to the Peterloo Massacre, which occurred in 1819, so it's very fresh in Shelley's mind. A crowd of 60 to 80,000 people had gathered at St. Peter's Field to demand parliamentary reform. There was famine because of really bad laws. There was terrible unemployment. They were in the middle of an economic recession, and so they were asking for political reform. The government, fearing revolutionary violence, ordered cavalry troops to charge the crowd. And in the melee, 15 people were killed, hundreds were wounded. The British Army had charged its own citizens, and many people in England were horrified. It was called Peterloo, right, after the great victory over Napoleon at Waterloo. It was an ironic term. Here's what our soldiers have descended to. An army whom liberticide and prey. Liberticide would be the murder of liberty. It's not a common word, right? Like homicide, the murder of a human being, or even patricide, the murder of your father. But that's the word that he's using here. Golden and sanguine laws. They're golden, not because they're great and wonderful, but because they're bought by gold. They're bought by the rich. And they're sanguine because they are bloody. And finally, so he goes through all of these terrible things. The church is no good, right? Religion, Christless, godless. The Senate is time's worst statute. The king is no good. The army is dangerous. The princes are no good. The turn in the sonnet comes right before the last two lines. right? As with an English sonnet. And it's when we finally get to the verb. Notice that up to this point, this is all subject. The whole sonnet is one sentence. So all of these things are graves from which a glorious phantom may burst to illumine our tempestuous day. That glorious phantom, that's revolution. Okay, part of what makes this a great poem is the way that Shelley manipulates sound to create really powerful, memorable lines. So let's look now at the sound of this poem. So the rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, but then C, C, D, D. Right? So it doesn't follow either the Italian or the English scheme, but it's a really intricate rhyme scheme, only 4 rhymes for the whole poem. And look at his use of the sound effects. I already talked about the assonance in an old, mad, blind, despised, and dying king. Right? We've also got consonants, blind, despised, dying. Right? And alliteration, despised and dying. So it's all there. Princes, the dregs of their dull race, more D's, that links it to the first line as well. Assonance in the next 2 lines. Leech-like to their fainting country, cling till they drop blind in blood without a flow, right? Look at all that alliteration. But he also adds consonants, blind in blood, right? The people are starved and stabbed in the untilled field, actually LD at the end of both of those words. Skipping down, golden and sanguine, it links the golden and the bloody. Right? And religion is Christless, godless, a book sealed, all those hissing S's. And they continue into the next line, a sin at times with statute unrepealed. Right? Our graves from which a glorious alliteration phantom may burst to illumine our tempestuous day, right? So he's really paying attention. He's really working the sound throughout this whole poem. Notice, too, I really like what he does with the couplets. A couplet, as you may have noticed in Shakespeare, a lot of scenes end with a couplet. A couplet gives you a feeling of closure. And so he almost gives us a feeling of closure at the end of the 12th line, right? A book sealed, a sin at times with statute unrepealed. But it's a false closure because he's about to say, no, things don't have to stay the way they are. These things, these terrible things, could lead to a glorious revolution. Ode to the West Wind is also a poem of revolution, though it's not so straightforward as England in 1819. I'm not going to go through it line by line. It is an incredible and beautiful poem, but I'm going to give you a sense of the overall structure, which I think should help your reading and your understanding. The Ode to the West Wind is going to end with a call to revolution, but it starts out more like a nature poem. It's addressed to a natural force, and it describes a variety of natural scenes. And the first 3 stanzas all talk about the effect of the west wind on different parts of nature. The first stanza talks about the effect on land, how in the autumn the west wind blows the leaves and seeds. Right? And at the end of that stanza, he calls out to the west wind, wild spirit which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, oh hear. It's a destroyer because it's ripping the leaves off the trees. It's killing them. But it's a preserver because it also transports the seeds to the place where they will sprout in the spring and there will be new birth. The second stanza talks about what the west wind does in the skies. It blows the clouds about the way it blew the leaves. It brings violent storms, from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. On the waters, that stanza 3, it talks about what happens on the waters when the west wind blows. And it awakens beautiful, peaceful, slumbering waters. It creates massive waves. It even causes underwater plants to lose their leaves. So the first 3 stanzas are all about the effect of this natural force. The 4th stanza, though, as in most of the greater romantic lyrics, is where you see the natural landscapes, leading Shelley to consider his own problems. And this is the end of the 4th stanza. I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. A heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed one too like thee, tameless and swift and proud. Right? Life has got him down. He feels stuck. He feels unable to claim his real self and unable to make any difference in the world. And then comes the final stanza. And here I'm going to spend a little more time on it. Make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit. Be thou me, impetuous one. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. And by the incantation of this verse, scatter as from an unextinguished hearth ashes and sparks, my words among mankind. Be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? He asks the wind to speak through him, right? He's a lyre, which is a stringed instrument, and the wind plays over his strings. He asks the wind to take his writing, even if the pages are withered leaves, right? There's that pun again, leaves and leaves, pages, to start a new movement, a new birth. He asked it to take whatever sparks are left in his dying fire, take his words and spread them among mankind so they can start a blaze, they can inspire a blaze. He asks it to use him like a trumpet to announce a prophecy for the future, because he is hoping for a revolution, right? If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Yes, the revolution will involve death and destruction, like the autumn, like the storms, but it will also be a new birth and a new world. It's an amazing poem. It's a beautiful poem. And Shelley here combines the romantic love of nature with a romantic call for revolution.